What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I have a 4 versus 3 Siege of Dol Guldur. It's been a while since we played on this map, but with the new patch and everything that brings with it, I thought this would be a great opportunity to show off some of the new units, especially for Bree and the Forces of Eriador, which are now a powerhouse faction in 0.9. So I'm really excited to get into it, so let's not delay any further and let's jump right into the army compositions, then we can get into the battle itself. I hope you guys enjoy. We're going to be taking a look at the defending armies first, but since there's a lot of really nice teamwork, especially among the defenders in this battle, their armies are very mixed in with one another. You can see a nice tiered defense on the inside here, and there are 4 armies all supporting each other and compensating for one another's weaknesses. So what we're going to do is that instead of going through the army compositions army by army, we're just going to go through by placement in the fortress, and we're just going to call units out as we see them. The first set of units here, up on this main gate, we have some of the Gondor forces under the command of Balin. He's bringing some Pelargian Marines, really nice javelin units, a lot of AP damage on these guys. This gatehouse is really the perfect place for them to be. I do not believe that these gates and these walls here can be felled by artillery, so they are essentially safe from incoming artillery fire thanks to these crenellations on top. The only real weakness they have is, of course, massed arrow fire, but since the archers are going to have to be firing from the bottom of a hill over top of these battlements, it's not going to be an easy thing to dislodge those marines, so really it's a great deployment for them. He's also got some Gondor infantry up there. Gondor infantry in 0.9 are not as strong as they used to be, which isn't really saying a whole lot, but they are very cheap and cost effective. They cost about 500 florins each, have 31 defense, 9 attack, and you can get about 4, actually I think you can get like 5 or 6 of them, in fact, before you get a price increase. So they make really good fodder for your armies, and it allows you to economize with your budget and spend your money elsewhere on your more elite units, and Gondor has a bunch of new elites, and we're going to see a few of them in this battle. Down here at the gatehouse on the bottom level, we have the forces of Rune being commanded by Rules 1. This is one of his favorite factions, in fact, and he's pretty damned good with them. He's got some Lokgamp Rim here, some spearmen guarding the door, alongside some clan guard who it looks like they're there to soak up any charges or missile fire that comes through the gatehouse, which isn't the worst idea. The clan guard are really cheap. I think they cost about 500 or 550 to bring. They are AP and anti-cavalry. A nice little addition, especially in close quarters fighting like this narrow gatehouse here and the lower levels of the fortress. He's also bringing some Balkoth tribesmen. Everybody loves these guys. They are javelins. I think they cost about 350 in 0.9, and they are of course AP missiles, and they do a lot of damage in melee as well. He's also bringing some clan crossbows. They are very cheap AP missile units, and over here we've got some Lok Flagrim. I think he's got about 4 or 5 of them all told. They only cost about 750, but they have really nice attack and defense stats, and they are AP, meaning that they make a great battle line infantry, and they can smash apart other heavy infantry units and units that cost a significant amount more than them. Up on the wall, we've got some more Lok Flagrim, some clan crossbows, and over here we're getting into the army of the Free Peoples of Eriador, which has received a major overhaul in 0.9. They are practically a new faction. They've got a lot of heavy infantry. I've got some Rudauer Maidens here. The model, if you guys play Call of Warhammer, you guys are going to recognize this model right away. These are the Rudauer Maidens, taken from the, I think like the Norskin Shield Maidens or something like that. In behind, we got some more Balkoth tribesmen, and then we get into some Gondor forces under Balin. These are the Lasarnak nobles. I believe these guys have 2 HP, but they're essentially an upgraded version of the Lasarnak axemen. So they're anti-cavalry, anti-armor, and all around just a really nice unit, especially as in a support role. Over here we've got some Fountain Guard. Everybody familiar with these guys. The Fountain Guard are 2 HP. I think they qualify as pikemen, but they may not in 0.9. I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that. But they have a lot of hit points and a lot of defense, and they're very deadly in melee. Up on the wall we can see a unit here of Dunedain Rangers, alongside some more of Balin's heavy infantry. Over here we've got a catapult under the command of Rules in front of them, guarding them from any assault from the front. We have some Greenway Guards, who have been upgraded, I believe, in 0.9. They are now anti-armor, I believe, which makes them not too bad, and especially good at taking down heavy cavalry, which is what you're generally going to be using your spearmen for. Over here we have a new unit for the Free Peoples of Eriador. These are the bandit... Oh, this isn't the new ones. There are some new bandit units, though, one of which is in this battle. But this is the Free Peoples of Eriador, rather, under Sabones McTavish. He's bringing some bandits, and again we have a similar setup here from Rules 1, some Lokgamp Rim with some Clan Guard in the front. We got some light clansmen here. Usually bring these guys, I think, for the stakes that they can deploy. Also got some more Dunedain Rangers, yet more Dunedain Rangers, and more infantry from Balin. Of course, we got some Pelargir Marines, and a new unit for Gondor. This is the shielded variant of the Fountain Guard, armed with these gigantic green tower shields, which just look absolutely brilliant. I believe they have about 14 attack and 40 defense, so a significant amount less than the unshielded variant, but they are a lot better at standing up to arrow fire, which is why these guys serve very well as frontline troops. Moving on down here, we've got some more bandits, yet more bandits from Sawbones, and another very similar kind of setup to what Rules has in the other gate, except that instead of Clan Guard, we've got some Citadel Guard under Balin in the front. The Citadel Guard are now worth it to take with you. They cost, I think, about 1,000 florins, but they have 2 HP and really nice attack and defense stats as well. Up here over top of the gate, we have some more forces from Sawbones McTavish. These are the Forachel Heavy Swords, a brand new unit for the Eriador faction. These guys are really nice, heavy battle line infantry, and there's a few other variants that you're going to see in his army as well, but I think he's got about 2 or 3 units, 2 of which are on the gatehouse. Over here on the flank, we can see a unit of Wardens of the White Tower. These guys are really cheap frontline infantry. Well, reasonably cheap. They're not as expensive as, say, Fountain Guard, but they have 2 HP and pretty decent melee and defense stats to boot. Moving on up here to the final level of the castle, we have the final reserves. In the back, we've got a unit of Balkoth Sapphire Bladesmen. These are an upgraded version of the Balkoth Tribesmen, a brand new unit for Rune. They do a lot of damage with those two-handed, you can see it on the back, those two-handed falxes that they can bring to bear. I believe they are AP in melee as well as AP with their missiles, and they have multiple hit points as well. In the back, we've got some Forachel Captains. These guys have, I believe, 2 or 3 HP and are really nice shock infantry. They also make a really powerful bodyguard unit. In the back, we've got some Sons of the Argonath, more Gondor forces under Balin. This is another brand new unit, looking very stylish there. They got a mix of the Citadel Guard helmets and I think the Fountain Guard epaulets, while they have the regular kind of Gondorian armor with a golden trim. These guys are so brutal. I think they have like 3 HP, a ton of damage as well to boot, making them very, very deadly shock troops. Out in the front here, we've got some Forachel Gatekeepers, previously known as the Gatekeepers. They haven't changed a whole lot. They are still very good crossbowmen, but they are also decent heavy infantry after all has been said and done. Over in front of them, we have a new unit for the Free Peoples of Eriador. These are the Bandit Javelins. They, I believe, have the ability to hide just about anywhere, so they're very stealthy, as many of the Bandit units are, but they also have a AP missile that they can throw, which does a ton of damage to heavy infantry. Over here, we have another brand new unit. These are the Camul's Chosen, a 2 HP, I think like 41 defense and like 23 attack, something like that, heavy infantry unit. They also inspire the units around them, which prevents them from routing as easily, making them very, very useful to put in the center of a formation. Out in front, we've got some more clan crossbows and some more Lokgamp Rim. Out in front of them, we got a couple units of Cardolin Royal Guard. I believe these guys are still 2 HP spearmen, making them very reliable at the battle line. If you guys have played in 0.86, the Cardolin Royal Guard were a must-have for the backbone of your Eriador force, and they are still very, very useful, even with the addition of the new units. Up here we got another unit of clan crossbows, and I think that is pretty much the entirety of the defending force. It is very, very large, very formidable. So let's see what the attackers have brought now to knock it down. The first army we're going to look at today is the Forces of Khand. Yes, this is a brand new faction being played by Von Mountain. He has brought some Nurad footmen. This says that they're light infantry, but they are actually quite potent. I'm not 100% sure on their stats. Khand is a faction I haven't really played a whole lot with, but the Nurad footmen are actually very, very good, and despite the fact that there's only 77 of them, they are more than capable of beating up some of the Gondor heavy infantry. I believe he's got about 3 or so units of them, just as a first-line kind of shock troop. And behind them, we have the Nuriag Raiders, some medium bowmen. These guys are really good for the numbers that they can bring to bear, and they also have pretty competitive missile damage as well. Although missile damage generally across the board in 0.9 has gone down dramatically, but the Forces of Khand really specialize in ranged warfare, and you're going to see a lot of that in this battle today. Behind them, we have some Haruzi Archers, more units that were created by Sin of the Dark Cloud for this brand new faction, another a light archer unit to give them a lot of volume of fire. In behind, we have a fan favorite. These are the Variag Bowmen, an absolutely essential part of runic armies in 0.86. They're really cheap to bring, and they also are able to stand up to bowmen for a significantly long period of time due to the presence of their shields. They are now part of the Khan faction and no longer available to Rune, I believe, but Rune has some other additions as well that more than make up for their loss. In behind them, he's got a final line here composed of, I believe, 4 or 5 units. 5 units, of course, of the Nomadic Axemen. These guys are another previously runic unit that have been added to the new Khandish faction. In behind them, we have some Brotherhood of the Axe. These guys were always very powerful. They're a little bit less strong in 0.9. I think they have just 2 HP instead of the 3 that they had previously. And they've got a little bit lower stats, but they are still a very welcome addition to a predominantly light infantry roster. Over here we have some Khandish Marauders. These guys are, I believe, AP. They're kind of like throwaway, not really all that expensive troops. And if you look carefully at the model, if you guys are familiar with Last Days of the Third Age, these guys actually use the model that the Variags use in that mod for Mountain Blade. So that's kind of cool to see. Moving on now to the next army, we have the armies of one of the 2 armies of the dwarves being commanded by Samwise the Brave. He's got a catapult here. I'm not sure if this change actually went through, but from what I understand, the dwarven catapults actually work a little bit differently. 1, they're more accurate, and 2, they actually shoot a clutch of 3 small catapult bolts or balls or whatever you want to call them. They will individually do less damage, but if all 3 of them hit together, they will do more damage. And of course, as with all artillery in 0.9, they haven't gotten a greatly increased range to go along with their new shot type. Samwise is also bringing a couple units of Ironfoot Guard. These guys are 2 HP battle line infantry. They've got, I think, 43 defense and like 21 attack, so they are really, really good and not very easily beaten down by things like arrow fire. He's also bringing some Dwarven Miners here, just kind of a throwaway unit that he's going to use to push his ram up the hill towards the gate. Back here, he's got some Ironfoot Warriors. These guys, I do not believe have 2 HP, but they are very, very strong, very heavily armored, and not easy to take down with arrows either. They're kind of more of a frontline unit for the dwarves. You'd use them to wear down your enemies before you engage with your more elite corps. In behind them, he's got some Khazad Orc Archers, relatively unchanged, except for the fact that they have a little bit less missile damage, as do most archers, and they have greatly increased range. He's also bringing some Axemen of Erebor, who are basically the same as they always were. They're really powerful shock troops, but extremely vulnerable to missile fire. Samwise is also bringing a couple units of Ironfoot Crossbows. Everybody loves the Ironfoot Crossbows. A unit of Dwarven Noblemen, and some Sons of Durin. I think these guys have 3 HP, and they are still AP, making them very, very powerful shock troops on the charge. Over behind the hill, I believe this is the army of... Yes, it is. This is one of the 2 new Elven factions. The Sylvan Elves have essentially been split into 2 factions. One is supposed to be, I think, Lorien, and the other is the Sylvan Elves, who are now known as the Woodland Realms. And this is being commanded by Obi-Wan Glorfy. He's got some Palace Guard. These guys still very strong. One of the few units that has more than 3 HP left in the game. I believe these guys have about 5. So they're very, very potent still. And yeah, not an easy force to beat by any means. They'll definitely kill much more than their number and much more than their cost, which is quite formidable. He's also bringing a unit of Catapult and everything that comes with it. Increased range and increased accuracy. We've got some Forest Bladesmen here. These are one of the tar pit units for the Elven factions. It was one of the things that they desperately needed with some of the changes that came out in 0.9. Generally, across the board, the Elves have a lot less numbers and are generally quite expensive units. And since archers aren't as generally useful as they used to be, they needed a few things, and this is one of them. They only cost, I think, about 300 to 400 to bring, and you can bring quite a lot of them before you get a price increase. And they're still very, very formidable, especially in terms of their melee defense. Obi-Wan is also bringing a couple units of Hiri Bang missiles. These guys are very strong and very good in melee as well. Also got some Woodland Sentinels here. These guys are able to hide anywhere, which makes them very useful ambush archers. Over in behind here, pushing a couple of the siege towers, we can see... Actually, Obi-Wan has gone really heavy on the archers this time around. We've got some Elder Royal Guard. These guys are a little bit different than they used to be. They have less numbers. I think they cost about the same, but they have 2 HP and are very good in melee. So Obi-Wan's forces really, it appears to me, to be all about getting his missile troops in range, firing as much as he can, and doing as much damage as possible, and then moving in to use his archers as infantry. He's also bringing a unit of Elder Royal Council. Again, a 2 HP archer unit, generally used as a bodyguard, but in this case, just as a little bit of extra heavy infantry boost for his not very large force. You can see the Sylvan Elves don't have a lot of troops here, but what they do have is very, very deadly. I think there may also be some hidden units in there as well, possibly some Sindar Blade Masters, but I don't really see any flags popping up at this point. Moving on now to the 4th attacking army, we have the army of the dwarves being commanded by Azg the Dwarf. He's bringing some Ironfoot crossbows, some Erebor infantry, one of the newer units. I think you guys saw this in the last battle we did. They are 2 HP, not very numerous, but I think they have like 20 or so attack. I don't believe they're AP though, but they're still a very reliable battle line infantry. He's also bringing some hammers of good and bad. These guys are 2 HP and really nice shock troops. They're also AP. He's got another unit of Erebor infantry and a couple units of Ironfoot guard to boot. In behind, in his third and final line, he's bringing some Mithril guards, a unit of Ironfoot pikemen, and some Khazad warriors. And that basically does it for the army compositions. Let's go ahead and let's jump right into the replay. And yet again, the battle is going to get started off with a bang. You can see the Dwarven Catapult beginning to open fire on the gatehouse, but as I mentioned previously, the walls here are impervious to artillery fire, which means that they are going nowhere, and ultimately this is going to be a waste of the Dwarven ammunition. Elsewhere, you can see the rest of the armies begin to slowly lurch forward. Von Mountain, this is actually a really nice tactic, and I want to kind of draw attention to this. He's going to move forward here. You can see these 2 archer companies on the walls, and he's deliberately targeting them with his Narad footmen, who are able to move very, very swiftly up this hill and not lose a lot of their fatigue in the process. By getting them to the wall very, very quickly, he's going to be able to shut down the bowmen on the walls, which is going to allow his forces time to get into position without getting completely and utterly decimated by the bowmen, by the Dunedain Rangers rather, up there on the walls. That's a particularly clever tactic. Elsewhere, you can see the dwarves on the other side slowly but surely moving up. In point 9, the dwarves are a little bit slower than you would normally expect them to be. They have always been very slow, but in point 9 they are even slower. So it's going to take them quite a while to haul these massive siege towers up the hills. But at the same time that the dwarves are moving into position, you can see the elves doing the exact same thing. A little bit swifter on their end, and they're going to be able to move up there very, very quickly and form up about the same time as their dwarven ally, which is going to be really useful. Nice coordination of their assaults there. You can see those Narad footmen beginning to climb those ladders, getting up onto the walls, the Gondor infantry waiting to receive them. You're going to get to see the power of these Narad footmen. These guys are light infantry versus heavy infantry, which normally is not a very easy fight for a light infantry unit, but you'll see in just a few moments how well these Narad footmen managed to do. So let's take a look. The lines have clashed, those Narad footmen flooding now onto the walls, disrupting the archer fire from these Dunedain Rangers, who are not able to get their final volley off, and at the same time, using that distraction, Von Mountain is going to move forward with the rest of his army. You can see the Nerniag Rangers charging up this hill, followed very closely by the Haruzi archers and the Variag bowmen in the third wave. Elsewhere on the main gate, this is the western gate, the dwarves are abandoning their post here. You can see that Rune has opted to be very, very aggressive and has chased out with their clan guard, and they're now charging downhill after those dwarven miners who have managed to make it back to the safety of their lines and yeah, make it back to the safety of the army. But these Ironfoot crossbowmen don't really want to get involved in that kind of struggle, because the clan guards will do a fair amount of damage to them. You don't want to lose your crossbowmen that you're desperately going to need in a siege battle when you have other units you can throw in front of these guys as well. You can see a little bit of fire coming in from the elves, who have actually managed to summit this hill, coming in from behind and now laying down some suppressive fire into those clan guard, who are now beginning to rout and flee towards the safety of the citadel, but I don't think you're going to see too much more from them. They are quite heavily reduced at this point, and the elves are going to rain down death and destruction upon them as they flee. I think we're going to see a few more of the elven forces come around this way, although never mind, it looks like most of them have opted instead to come around to this hilltop here and begin to put down some suppressing fire on the defending forces on the inside of this gatehouse here at the eastern gate. Let's take a look at just how well these Narad footmen are doing. You can see a very easy victory for the Narad footmen. They've managed to scythe down about half of this unit of Gondorian heavy infantry, really displaying the prowess of these Variag warriors. Elsewhere, though, they're not having... Oh, looks like that's the gate on, I believe, the north side. The Narad footmen have managed to breach it. But over here, these Narad footmen not doing quite so well, but still managing to take down over half of the Gondorian infantrymen, which is pretty impressive for a fairly cheap unit of light infantry. See a little bit of reinforcements moving up to try and push back these Narad footmen. They've got a very strong foothold on this wall, but Eriador is not going to let them hold on to it. You can see these Rudar maidens moving into position, getting ready to attack these footmen from behind. They're going to squeeze them here in a pincer movement between these Gondorian infantry and those Rudar spearmen. Spearwomen, I should say. Elsewhere, the dwarves are really taking their time and moving up here towards the walls. It looks like the clan guard actually managed to reform, which is very surprising. They're actually being attacked in the rear by the dwarven miners, who are armor-piercing as well, so they're going to side through these guys, and that's going to be the end of the clan guard. Very unfortunate. They had an opportunity to get them back inside the walls and salvage what remained of that unit, but I don't think the runic player noticed. I think his attention is probably elsewhere, dealing potentially with the Variags and the dwarves now, who have reached the gatehouse. Oh man, look at this. Trading artillery fire up here with the elven... Oh no, the elven artillery piece isn't up there yet, but they're firing at these towers. I think the elven player was maybe using these as cover potentially for his units, which would be very clever. He may also be trying to get them onto this little gatehouse here, which would be a very useful thing to do for his troops, because they'll be able to flank these wardens of the White Tower at the same time that the dwarves are moving in. You can see their siege tower is now almost in position to begin their assault on the walls. Also, these Ironfoot Guard, winded from walking uphill, but nonetheless charging bravely in the battle against these 4HL heavy swords. I think that is going to be, despite the fatigue disparity between the two units, I think that is definitely going to be in favor of the Dwarven player. Oh man, look at this. This siege tower is now caught fire, burning to the ground. The elves are going to rush forward and try and shelter in behind the burning wreckage of their one of their pieces of siege equipment. That's where the Ironfoot crossbows, not as well covered, I think, as their elven allies. You can see them really taking a lot of damage here to, I think it's the Dunedain Rangers right across the wall. Yeah, you can see them exchanging fire with the Dunedain Rangers. Dunedain Rangers definitely getting the worst of that engagement because of how lightly armored this unit is. The crossbows definitely have an advantage in terms of a skirmish fight once they get into range. Outside of that range, they are absolutely at the mercy of archer companies, and they aren't really able to stand up to sustain archer fire for too long, but once they get in range, this is the kind of thing that you can expect. Sorry, there's a little bit of a standoff here. You can see the clan guard and some more reinforcements moving up onto the wall to try and support the Gondorians, but these clan guard and the Nurad footmen just kind of staring each other down. Von Mountain, in my experience, is a very patient player, and you can see him really playing the long game in this particular instance. He's moved up his Nurad footmen to block off that means of exit, rather, for the defending forces, which is going to give his Nurniag Raiders and the rest of his army time to get underneath of these towers here, and underneath of any archer forces that may yet remain on the walls, and begin to bombard them, which is exactly what they're doing now. These two Variag units beginning to open fire upon, I think that would be the Rudour Maidens up here. Oh, never mind. They've actually targeted the clan crossbows, which is a good idea. These crossbows can do a ton of damage up here on these perches, rather, to heavily armored infantry as they move closer towards the walls. Wow, I can't talk tonight. Excuse me. Elsewhere on the western gatehouse, you can see the Peligir Marines are moving themselves into position, probably looking to get a piece of those Ironfoot Guard. I think they're actually trying to get off the walls, which is a really good idea. If Balin moves them down here, he's going to have a perfect opportunity to fire those armor-piercing javelins into the flank of those Ironfoot Guard while holding them in place with his Gondor infantry, which would be a really great idea and a great way to wear down some really important Dwarven infantry early on in the game. The rest of the Dwarven army being very, very conservative. Maybe a little bit more conservative than they should be. I know that the defenders have a lot of artillery and a lot of missile units, but at this point, just setting up one unit like that, it's just going to get itself destroyed and surrounded very, very quickly. Although I think Samwise has actually spread out a lot of his force, looking to attack from multiple lanes, trying to keep the defenders busy in more than one area, which is a great idea in this kind of fortress. Elsewhere, it looks like the Nurad footmen, they had a really great opportunity here. They had a good run. They cut down a lot of those Gondor infantry down. I think they killed about 100 of them, and the infantry is now down to a mere 5 men in that unit. But they unfortunately were bested by the reinforcements sent up by Eriador. The bandits and the Rudour Maidens were enough to see them off. But still, not bad for a fairly cheap light infantry unit. Whoop! Elsewhere, it looks like the dwarves have finally made it onto the walls. Ironfoot Guard doing their best to stand up to the 4HL heavy swords. They've really bisected this unit here, absolutely cut them in half, but because of the presence of Balin's Pelargir Marines down here, he's going to be able to freely toss his javelins into the flank of this Ironfoot Guard. They have enough armor that they'll be able to stand up to it for a little bit, and they have an extra hit point, which means that it's not easy to see these guys off. Oh, wow. Oh, that was disgusting. That was a beautiful catapult shot. I think the Elven catapult has actually moved itself up here onto the hill. It's not making too many of its shots. Yeah, you can see some of them impacting the wall here, but when it does, oh my god, the impact is gigantic. So the Fountain Guard from Balin are going to move forward, try and get under its firing arc. But as I was saying, the extra HP onto the Ironfoot Guard is going to be enough, I think, to help them hold the line long enough and force the Eriador player to commit some more reinforcements there to help drive them off. So it's going to be, I think, a fairly even exchange, possibly even in favor of the Dwarves, because the Gondor player is forced to use some precious Javelin ammunition. Moving on to the other side, it looks like Balin is setting up for basically the exact same thing. You can see the Pelargir Marines down here in a great position alongside some of the Balkoth tribesmen. Oh man, those dwarves are in for a real nasty surprise once they come off of those siege towers. It looks like the Dwarven Artillery Beast is trying to snake some shots over the wall and through these crenellations into some of the reserve forces up here on the ramp. Not a bad idea, but it's a real long shot. You've got a lot of things in the way. I'm not sure that I would use my artillery that way. But damn, he's getting pretty close. Like, look at that. Look at the distance here. Like, the artillery has been absolutely made extremely useful in the 0.9 patch. Also, you can see the dwarves, Samwise the Brave's dwarves, have now begun their assault in multiple places, and they are actually going to be able to push through these Root Hour Maidens. It says the balance of forces is evenly matched, but I think once more of these Ironfoot warriors get onto the walls, they're going to be able to push back those spearmen no problem. The dwarves now opening up another front. I think that would be the western gate where Rune sallied out with his clan guardsmen. But yeah, these Ironfoot warriors doing pretty well, though they are shaken if they're not careful. We could see a little bit of routing here. But I think those spearmen are really outclassed in that kind of fight. Oh man, gates are dropping like flies, and the assault is really beginning to intensify. The pressure is on for the defenders. You can see the dwarves have now opened another front over here on the eastern gate. They are now able to get through the gatehouse and begin to push the front lines. They're going to be pinning a lot of the defending forces in place now, which is going to allow them a little bit of flexibility in terms of their deployment. They have multiple means of ingress into the fortress, and they also have pretty decent missile units up here on the hill. Although, oh man, those Ironfoot crossbows got massacred in our absence. But the elves are still... Ooh, a little bit of lag there. The elves are still here, and there's quite a lot of them in force, so they are going to be able to put pressure as is needed. But of course, they need to be concerned about how many missiles they use in this kind of situation. They're definitely going to need them much, much later on. Well, let's take a look on over here and see if Balin has managed to get those Pelargir Marines activated, and indeed he has. Oh man, his Ironfoot Guard, again in the same kind of situation that they find themselves on the opposite gate on the eastern side. These Ironfoot Guard just being absolutely devastated by those Pelargir Marines. Even if they're not killing any of them, they are doing damage and they are knocking off some of their HP, which is going to greatly reduce the combat effectiveness of the Ironfoot Guard in the long term. So this is a really good exchange, I think, for the Gondorian player. He's just throwing away one of his kind of trash tier infantry, and in exchange he's going to take down some of the Dwarven elites. So that's really quite nice for him. Oh man, these poor Lokefly Grim just getting absolutely destroyed. Looks like they managed to push back some of Samwise's dwarves, which we didn't have a chance to see. They're now being shot from the rear by the Woodland Sentinels. Really nice positional play here on the part of Obi-Wan Glorfy. He's going to absolutely devastate this heavy infantry unit, which is going to be really important for the Runic player later on in the game. These guys are AP, which means that they are very useful, not necessarily for defeating some of the heavily armored elite forces that the attackers have brought to bear, but they are going to be able to do at least some damage and knock off some of their HP, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a victory in and of itself for some of the stronger units. Up here you can see some clan crossbows firing down, I think, into the Ironfoot dwarves, and indeed they are going to begin to rout. Looks like Balin has been successful here with his ally, the forces of Eriador, and they've managed to push back the second attack here by the forces of Samwise the Brave. His dwarven army is really looking worse for wear at this point, and he's going to be forced to commit the rest of his army. You can see 2 units of Axemen of Erebor moving up. One of them is actually abandoning the siege tower, which, honestly, that's not the worst idea. It's going to allow them to get up there a lot more quickly. Just to make a quick note, though, when you have these siege towers in front of you, they do act as shields for your forces from incoming missile fire. Since there's not a lot of active archers up here in the wall, that's not really a concern for them, but that is something to bear in mind in the future if you find yourself playing on Dol Guldur as an attacker. Oh man, more artillery shots going in there, impacting against the gatehouse is just so not worth it. Although we're seeing another sally here from the Pelargir Marines. I think they were out of ammunition. Maybe that was a bit of a micro mistake, getting themselves a little bit too jealous, perhaps. zealous rather, and maybe they were hoping that they could get out here and throw some javelins at this very moment. But the presence of these dwarven infantry so close to those lines and to the gatehouse is going to oblige them to retreat. Oh man, got some clan crossbowmen here. I think they're firing up here at the elves, and indeed they are. Wow, look at the damage they have done to the attacking skirmish forces. This hill is now a graveyard. They have done a lot of work, and that's just the clan crossbowmen too. They are not expensive. They are very powerful for what it costs to bring them. If you can get them activated and relatively safe from incoming missile fire, and this is the kind of work that they can do for you. That is really a unfair exchange, I think, in favor of the defenders. So great job there. Elsewhere, it looks like Von Mountain is finally pulling off his Narad footmen from the front gate. He's going to use them, I think, to push against the bandits up here alongside the Rudauer maidens, who are probably quite tired after fighting all this time. It looks like he actually has another unit of his Kondish marauders up here, and from what I can see, they've moved in to silence what remains of those Dunedain rangers. Over here at the gate, you can see his Nurniag raiders. This is really, really sneaky. I don't think that the runic player exactly realizes what is happening here. There's a lot going on in this battle, so this is the kind of stuff that when your opponent isn't paying attention, you can get away with. He's firing those Nurniag raiders straight into those clan guard, absolutely massacring them. Now would be a very good time for the runic player to activate them if he notices what's happening and move out and attack those Nurniag raiders. The Nurniag raiders are not strong in melee, and the clan guard will do a number on them. They may not win at this point because I don't think they have the numbers, but they will certainly silence this unit and probably kill at least half of it. Elsewhere, you can see the rest of the Dwarven infantry from Samwise the Brave now moving in on this western gate, the assault being spearheaded by these Dwarven noblemen, and they are just doing so much damage. Look at this. There's a lot of golden boys in here. There's some Lok Gamprim, the spearman, alongside some Lok Flagrim. I believe those were the units that were pulled off of the walls. They're quite heavily reduced from that sneaky positional play by the elves up on the top of that hill bordering the gatehouse, but I think it's going to be enough to hold these dwarves for a little while. But they're just punching through here. This is a great unit to use to spearhead siege assaults like this. They are very heavily armored, and they have a lot of HP and a lot of stamina as well, so they can really hold the line and actually give as good as they get back to attacking forces. Elsewhere, you can see some Axemen of Erebor now flooding onto the walls. I think what's left of these Gondorians is not going to be enough to hold them back. There's still a little bit of Ironfoot Guard there as well. The Javelins weren't able to completely destroy them. Balin is going to respond with a unit of Losarnak Nobles. I think they may be heading towards the gatehouse. Maybe they have some other plans for those troops up there on the wall. I think they've got some catapults, and yes, they do. Look at this. Rune is setting himself up for a glorious catapult volley into those Ironfoot Guard and into those Axemen of Erebor. If that manages to connect, that is going to be devastating for the remaining forces of Samwise, who is unfortunately assaulting this gate basically on his own while facing down the business end of three very well-prepared, very well-built armies. So it's unfortunate for him, but I think his allies are doing a little bit better elsewhere. We're going to come back to that in just a second. I want to see how well these Nurad footmen are doing up on the walls. Look at this. They are massacring those bandits and what remains of the Gondor infantry. And at the same time, they are taking on the remains of that Rudauer spear unit, which is still quite healthy. There's 54 still left in the unit. Although, to be fair, they are attacking some Kondish forces on the other side as well, but those forces are now routing. See, this is just how strong these Nurad footmen can be. Very, very efficient for the resources that it costs to bring them. See, the Von Mount has now moved up with some of his Brotherhood of the Axe. They may start to climb up that gate there, or those ladders there, may to exploit the gap in their lines, but maybe that would be a little bit too premature for his elites, and as I said, Von Mountain is a very cautious player. Moving over to the gatehouse, you can see things not going great for the defenders. You can see a lot of very important Elven and Dwarven infantry there that are slowly but surely managing to push their way through. And I think the Elven catapult is in there as well, so I think they may try to take out these bandits, which would be absolutely devastating for those lightly armored forces. Moving back over here. Oh man, it looks like we missed the catapult. Oh, that makes me so sad. But you can see a burnt pile of these Axemen of Erebor, what remains of that unit, having been absolutely devastated. Maybe we'll get one more volley here. It looks like the catapult is setting itself up to fire. Oh, that is devastating. That is absolutely horrible for those Axemen of Erebor, who may begin to rout. That would be huge. No, it looks like the morale is going to stabilize, but Samwise is going to start to pull them back off the wall. He's really taken a beating here, having to fight all of these armies at once. Although, that being said, his Dwarven noblemen have done an admirable job at hacking through the defending infantry, but Balin has now responded with one of his elite units, and we can see a javelin volley coming in from the Balkov tribesmen. Like I said, there's some really good teamwork in this battle. This is 3 different players working in tandem to push back one of the attacking armies, and indeed they have crippled it. Look at this. So many dead dwarves outside here, which is going to oblige the forces of Von Mountain, and I believe the elves as well, to move in and try and support their ally to keep up the pressure on this western gate. Moving on now to what I believe is the northern gate. Looks like Von Mountain has done a great job at hacking down a lot of those runic infantry. You can see Rune now realizes what's going on, but there's been so much damage done to his infantry. He is going to sally forth with his Lokgambrim. Von Mountain, however, was not unprepared. You can see a unit of Narad footmen, which I think came back from routing earlier, is going to move in and retake the position of their comrades at this gate and try and hold the infantry in place to allow these Nerniag skirmishers to be a real nuisance. And look at this. Even against the bandits, who heavily outnumber these guys, like 4-1, the Narad footmen are still holding the line and still dealing casualties to those bandits. Up here, Khan now has a definite hold on the wall. They've beaten back a lot of this infantry. And there's what are these guys? I think... Okay, wow, that's a new unit I've never actually seen or played with before. So I don't know what their capabilities are, but they look like archers of some kind, probably elite archers that are pretty good in melee as well. These are the Wardens of Minas Ithil. I don't know anything about their capabilities, though, as I said before. Also, we're down in this gatehouse. Wow, the attacking forces have really managed to push through here, which I think is going to oblige the defenders to begin to fall back. And indeed, we can see that that is the case. The shielded Fountain Guard alongside the catapult unit from Balin is now going to begin to fall back towards the main gate. Rune is now forming up with his Lokgambrim to form a final line of defense to give, I think, the rest of the forces here the opportunity that they need to fall back. At the same time, Von Mountain is going to take advantage of the weakness of the defending positions and begin to move in with his with what remains of his Khandish infantry. And you can see these poor Rudauer maidens here. They've been holding the line for quite a while, and they've done an admirable job at doing so, but they're now being overwhelmed by the fierce warriors from Khans and their two-handed axes. Elsewhere, though, Samwise the Brave has thoroughly been pushed back out of the gatehouse, and I think he's lost most of his army. But 2 out of 3 gatehouses are now firmly, I think, in the control of the attacking forces, which is really, really good progress. There was a lot of very formidable armies that were inside of here defending these choke points, and the attackers have done a great job at forcing their way in. Here, Balin, I think, is looking to hold these nomadic axemen in place for as long as possible with his Pelargir Marines, looking to give the forces from Rune the forces from Rune and the rest of his forces as well. You can see some shielded Fountain Guard down here, the opportunity to fall back. So their sacrifice, I'm sure, will not be in vain, and we can see a lot of forces beginning to funnel their way in to the center. Let's take a look at how things are doing down here. All these Pelargir Marines are they going to get a volley off? I think they're out of ammunition. Maybe that was their last volley. Yeah, it looks like it. That was the last bit of ammunition that they had. Managed to maybe deal a little bit of hit point damage, but I don't think there was too much there they could do. These Pelargir Marines now forming a line here, holding back the Khazad warriors, and possibly even the Arab or infantry as well, who I think are going to be obliged to flank them to spare their Khazad warriors a little bit of a beating. I don't know, maybe these guys are going up here onto the walls. I'm not too sure. But, yeah, these guys are holding back the tide to give their allies a chance to fall back. The forces of the elves now moving in with some of their very powerful elites, just kind of cleaning up what remains of the resistance in the first level. You can see these Dunedain Rangers, very few of them left, down to a mere 1 in that unit. Is making a famous last stand here against that Ironfoot Guardsman. But it's going to be in vain for him because the positions here have been completely and thoroughly overrun. Elder Royal Guard now moving themselves into position. I think they still have ammunition. They're probably going to target these Lokgambrim, which is a very good idea. Oh, wow, look at this. The Wardens of Minas Ithil managed a last-minute retreat off of the wall, getting themselves away from this Dwarven infantry. So it looks like Balin is going to be able to save them for a later date. Oh, these poor Lokgambrim are suffering very heavily at the hands of those Elder Royal Guard. But honestly, this is not a bad way to use them if you're going to use up some of the ammunition from a very powerful and expensive archer unit. The Elder Royal Guard have a lot of missile damage, and they are extremely accurate to the tune of, I think, about 90%. So if they can eliminate that threat, or at least reduce it in some small way, then I think that is going to be a net victory for the defenders. Those Narad footmen have now pushed their way through what remains of the defending forces. Look at the destruction on this section of wall. That is just brutal. There's hundreds of dead bodies there. It's really been turned into a boneyard. So we can see forces overwhelming what remains of those Rudar Maidens and the Pelargir Marines who are thinking about routing. They are not built for this kind of combat, unfortunately. Although, luckily for the defenders, the sacrifice of those Pelargir Marines, both here, and these Lokgamp Rim, have given a lot of their infantry the opportunity that they need to flee back to the center. Let's see, healthy unit of Clan Crossbowmen here being held up by some Woodland Sentinels. This is really a bad thing for the defenders. They want to keep as many of their missile units intact as possible. And it looks like the Dwarves have now managed to force their way through there with the help of the Elves. See some now out of ammunition Harry Bang moving in to support the Dwarven push here. Although, actually, never mind. They have ammunition left. But the Axemen of Erebor moving in, trapping this Clan Crossbow unit. This is really unfortunate. This is a big loss for the defenders. As I said earlier, they really need to keep their missile units intact into the late game because they're going to become so essential. Because in Dol Guldur, this final choke point always results in a missile fight. Whoever can come out on top in that usually ends up being the one who will take the fortress. So losing these guys is a overall strategic loss, I think, for the defenders. Looks like some Cardolan Royal Guard have now pushed up here to deal with what remains of the Ironfoot Guard. Definitely done a number on those units, but I think they've lost quite a lot in return. The Ironfoot Guard, like I said, are no slouches in melee and have a lot of endurance. Oh man, look at that. Look at the devastation that the defenders did here. That poor unit of Gondorian infantry really did their best to hold back those dwarves, and ultimately they managed to side through those Ironfoot Guard, and there's so many dwarves here. This is really the destruction of Samwise's army. Got some catapult shots going in here to the center of these Axemen of Erebor. Oh, they just absolutely tore the heart out of that unit, and they're now going to begin to flee off the battlefield. And that's basically the end, I think, of Samwise's army. Very, very unfortunate. He definitely had his work cut out for him. It was not an easy thing for him to push as far as he did, so hats off to him. Elsewhere, you can see Von Mountain arranging his Nerniag Raiders in a very, very cheeky position, using the defenders' own battlements against them, firing into the unprotected Lokgamp Rim and these Clan Crossbows. These guys are both very, very vulnerable to missiles, so he's chosen his target very astutely. Elsewhere, we can see what remains of the Lokgamp Rim now being overwhelmed by a push from the Elder Royal Guard, backed up with some Forest Bladesmen and some Erebor infantry. They sacrificed their lives so that their compatriots may live, and they unfortunately didn't really manage to do a lot of damage to these Elder Royal Guard in turn, although they did manage to take down 4 of them, which I think is fairly impressive for an understrength spear unit. Elder Royal Council now moving in to mop up what remains of them, and I think that's going to leave the defenses of the outer ring completely and utterly swept aside. But look at this. Look at the devastation all along the walls here. The defenders really gave as good as they got, and made the attackers pay for every inch of ground that they took. Oh man, that catapult shot was just glorious. So many Fountain Guard died there. Yeah, so Khand is now in control of the walls. It remains to be seen what he's going to do with some of his nomadic axemen. So they're not really in danger right now, but they could be used to push up and protect this catapult unit, for example, which it looks like Obi-Wan is slowly but surely rolling into position, looking to blow some holes in the defending forces. The defenders really need to be aggressive at this point. Once this sort of thing starts to happen, this happens in almost every siege of Dol Guldur that I have ever seen or played. And I think in some of the replays on the channel, you've seen just how devastating an uninterrupted catapult crew can be on a defending force up on this ramp. So it's really going to be down to the defenders to be aggressive and not give any ground to the attackers here. And it looks like Obi-Wan has maybe got a little bit too far ahead of himself. It could be because he's not too worried about those Greenway Guards, and he has some Elven units here to run a little bit of protection. But these Greenway Guards are going to be enough, I think, to maybe make these catapult units think twice about their deployment. Let's see if they can manage to get in there in time before the catapults can fire a volley. No, it doesn't look like they're going to have the opportunity. The Elder Council are going to move in and silence these guys, prevent them from getting into that catapult. But it looks like his positioning is a little bit off. It's a good idea what he's doing. He's definitely shielded. Let's slow it down just a little bit here.
Only half our force remains.
He's definitely shielded from any counter fire. You can see it unless there's a catapult up here, which indeed there is not. So he's going to be able to just kind of sneak shots through there potentially. But I think where he is right now, it's just not going to be enough. There's kind of an invisible barrier essentially around this corner, which prevents missile fire from going through it. But still, a very good idea. Very sneaky. Oh man, those poor Greenway Guardians just doing their best. It is going to oblige this catapult here to reposition itself, and they're going to be exposing themselves to a lot of fire. So the defenders have an opportunity to shut down this artillery unit, and indeed they need to. It is absolutely essential to their victory. If they cannot stop this catapult and Obi-Wan is able to defend it, and so far he has been, then the defenders are not going to be able to have the numbers going into the late game that they're going to need to defend this position. This looks like we can see some catapults moving in for some counter fire. Looks like the catapult from Ballin, and I believe Rules is in there as well. Yes, indeed. They're moving themselves up to begin to counter-snipe this artillery piece here. But I think the Elves are going to have an opportunity to wind their catapult up before the defenders can get themselves into position. All right, let's go ahead and let's speed it up just a little bit there. Let's see if they manage to do their work. Oh, look at this. There's an attack here from the Cardinal Royal Guard and some archer fire coming in, which is going to oblige Obi-Wan Glorfy to flee from his artillery pieces. Oh, man, a beautiful shot there, taking down one of Obi-Wan Glorfy's catapults. This unit now down to about 2/3 of its effectiveness. And indeed, the defenders have an opportunity here. Even though the crew is gone, they can still fire down at these forest bladesmen who are being held in position by the Cardinal Royal Guard. And if they hit them, then obviously they'll do damage to that unit, but at the same time, they will take down one of these artillery pieces. There's a big opportunity for the defenders here. Let's see if they can capitalize on it. Oh, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to have the opportunity. But that catapult is looking like it's ready to fire. Maybe we're going to see it in just a few moments. No, I think they're... Oh! Spoke too soon. Oh, it was a good try. Unfortunately, I think they ended up hitting some of their own units, and those Cardinal Royal Guard may begin to rout. Oh, nope, they're still there. The Elves haven't quite cleared them all out yet, and they are being a big problem for that artillery crew. Up here in the battlements, you can see more and more Nurniag Raiders have moved themselves up here, and they're actually doing really well for themselves. The defenders do have a lot of missile units up there that they can use to counter-snipe them, and I think they have been trying to. Yeah, you can see some volleys coming in from the defenders right now. But the Nurniag Raiders aren't taking too much damage. They're very nicely spread out here. I think that's partially because of the pathfinding and partially intentional on the part of Von Mountain. But because they are so spread out, it's not easy to cut them down with volley fire. Still, nonetheless, the defenders are trying it, although I think this unit just ran out of ammunition, so they may be committed to a melee push soon. See the defenders, again, being very aggressive here. This is what I love to see, and what is absolutely essential to claim victory on this map as a defending force. Moving forward, not letting... Oh, man, what just happened? But yeah, they're moving forward, not letting the attackers get themselves set up. I think some counter catapult fire just claimed the life of the Dwarven general. See, Samwise the Brave has moved up, trying to do the same thing that Obi-Wan Glorfy was doing earlier, being very sneaky, playing the corners, but because of the way that these custom settlements work, he's not going to be able to be... he's not going to be able to sneak what catapult shot there through that corner. Elsewhere, I think one of the other catapults of Obi-Wan Glorfy was then cut down. Yes, indeed it was, so it now has one catapult left. So the defenders have done an admirable job at shutting down the biggest threat to their defense. If it comes down to it, pound for pound in an infantry fight, I think that the defenders have what it takes to shut down the attackers. They've got a lot of really powerful infantry in the back here. You can see Sons of the Argonath and Campbell's Chosen. I believe the Sapphire Bladesmen are in here as well. Yes, they are, mixed in amongst the Balcott Tribesmen. And a huge number of Fountain Guard, at least 2 regiments of Fountain Guard, still available for the defenders. They've got their super heavies, and they've got the missile units to give the attackers a run for their money. I think that they can still do this. Oh man, those Lokam Brim and those Greenway Guards really putting up a great fight here. The Elves have charged and reformed a few times. I think Obi-Wan Glorfy is trying to sucker him out of position using feints, but these forces in defensive formation are not going to be so easy to bait. So we can see that Elven Catapult crew, I think they're running back to the catapult. No, unfortunately, the defenders have broken the dreams of these Elven Catapult crewmen. You can see them still trying to push the wreck of their final catapults, not willing to accept defeat. But unfortunately, the Elven Catapult unit has been silenced for good. Although they do still have the dwarves at this point, which could still prove to be a decisive factor in this battle. This is a wonderful skirmish line. You can see that the defenders have set up here a lot of forces working in tandem to try and target some of these important units, like the Fountain Guard, for example, who are particularly vulnerable to missiles, and these Javelin units here as well. These Javelins are really, as Javelin units generally tend to be, they don't cost a lot to bring, and they can do a lot of damage, making them very, very efficient if you can get them working. So I think that's probably one of their targets, alongside some of the archer units and, of course, the catapult crews themselves. Oh, look at this. There's now a second tier to the skirmish defense. Von Mountain has moved up a second unit of Nurniag Raiders onto the wall. I don't see the Haruzi archers anywhere. I'm wondering what happened to... Alright. It looks like we're having a little bit of a bug here. This is really unfortunate. The Haruzi archers took a lot of casualties, and I think they were just kind of stuck down here. And it looks to me like they're using mounted animations, which obviously that's a bug. That's a pathfinding bug. So very unfortunate for the Khandish player to not have access to those archers, especially at this point in the battle when they'd be really, really useful. But he's still got another 3 units of nomadic axemen. So despite the fact that Von Mountain had very little, in fact no heavy infantry at all, he has really managed to conserve his forces well to this late stage of the battle and push the defenders hard as well, despite the fact that he was attacking pretty well on his own. Moving back to the center defense now, you can see some Fountain Guard forming up the center here, weathering that arrow storm. They are going to have no problem standing up to those skirmishers up on the wall. As I mentioned in a previous video, it is not easy to cut down shielded and heavily armored infantry from the front with your skirmishers anymore. Unless the skirmishers are javelins, they have a little bit better chance, but still, it is not as effective as it once was. See, a lot of these Elven units have now moved in, obviously out of ammunition, looking to push hard against these Gamp Rim, who are proving very stubborn, not willing to be dislodged easily from this defensive position. Looks like most of the Greenway guards have begun to fall, definitely the weak link in that defense, but the Locate Gamp Rim still stands strong. And there's still some reinforcements left that the defenders can throw in there, basically at any time. And I hope they do that, because if they're not careful, especially from this catapult right here from Balin, they could find themselves caught out in the open by the Elven warriors, and of course the skirmishers up here. So gotta be really careful with that. Don't want to gamble too much with the lives of your crewmen. All is quiet everywhere else. Looks like the defenders are just kind of the attackers rather, just kind of gathering themselves for the final push. I think what they're going to do is just use wave tactics. There's a lot of nomadic axemen, for example, and again, those 3 units still out here that they can use to wear down the defenders. And that is definitely what I would do if I was in this position. You want to use those wave tactics, want to try and use up as much of the defending force's resources as possible, instead of just committing your heavy infantry and your super heavies and just trying to kind of bludgeon your way through the door. It takes a little bit longer, but it is definitely a much more sound tactic. And I think that's obviously what they're trying to do here by sending in like their archers, for example, first, and I think in the second wave we'll begin to see some of the nomadic axemen and light infantry begin to move in. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to fast forward it just a little bit here. 2 times speed, it's a lot of skirmishing. The relentless skirmishers up here from Khand just doing a great job at putting endless pressure on the defenders. Well, if you can put this kind of pressure, especially with these missiles, nobody likes to be shot at for a very long period of time. And you could sometimes make players crack and make mistakes and try and silence the units that are causing them such problems, often to their detriment. This fire ammunition, not maybe the best idea. I think they might just be trying to play a little bit with the morale. Actually, you know what? I know exactly what they're doing. In .9, fire ammunition does about 3 times as much damage as regular ammunition. It is less accurate, of course, as fire ammunition always is in Total War games, but it does help, I think, giving you a little bit extra oomph on your archers to deal with some of these heavy infantry units, like these Forge Hill Gatekeepers, for example, who are very well armored. Balin now moving his catapult into position. I wonder what he's thinking here. He may be trying to get an easy shot here off on these Khazad Orc Hunters, but I don't know if that would be worth it. He would probably hit his Lopgamp Rim. Oh, wow. Oh, I see exactly what he's going for. He's going for the Dwarven Catapult, which is taking a lot of damage here and is in danger of routing. Oh, their morale is stabilizing a little bit, but another big hit that might be what they need to send them fleeing. Oh, it's not going to be enough. Those Dwarven Catapultmen, very stubborn, very brave, managing to stabilize their morale and prevent themselves from running off the field. But still, this Catapult here, very, very exposed. The Elves now moving in after having taken a little bit of a breather in order to let the Khazad Orc Hunters apparently die in their stead. But look, I'm so impressed by these Lopgamp Rim Spearmen. Look at this. In a defensive line, these guys are so strong. They've managed to hold the line against untold odds. They've been fighting down here, I think, for like a solid 10 minutes, basically on their own with only a kind of low-tier unit of Spearmen to support them. So that's very impressive. So this Dwarven Catapult unit is about to get online. Oh man, most of the crew has gone down. That Catapult is trying desperately to silence these guys for good, and so are the archers. But most of the shots are actually being blocked either by the terrain or by the Catapult itself. You can see a lot of those shots missing or just impacting the front of the Catapult. Looks like they're going to have the opportunity they need. Oh, this could be devastating if they hit those Fountain Guard. Oh, and they did. Taking out a few of the Fountain Guard. That would have done a lot more damage if it was fiery ammunition. That would have probably cut down the unit by about a third. But still, a really nice shot. Although it looks like they died shortly thereafter. So that is it for the attacking artillery pieces. That really is going to do a lot for the defenders. I'm sure they are breathing a sigh of relief at this point, now that they don't have to deal with those catapults any longer. Everything's still all quiet. The defenders are really being careful and cautious with their forces. You can see them just slowly whittling down the defending front lines. And now the defenders are actually committing some of their elites as well. You see these Breland captains moving in to try and hack down the Hiri Bang. And honestly, the Hiri Bang are no slouches in combat, despite being archers. They can hold their own in melee. And these 4HL captains are really making quick work of them, I think. Oh man, look at this. Oh, that poor elf getting cut down. Hundreds of years of training to be cut down by a mere human. Very unfortunate for him. So the defenders are actually managing to drive them back here. This is such a good back and forth. This is a really even siege. Generally, Dol Guldur sieges, you can pretty well tell the victor by the time that you get to this point in the battle. But honestly, the defenders have done such a great job at conserving their forces, and likewise the attackers, that this could go either way. It's a chess match, essentially. It's who can wear down the other forces' elite infantry and warriors before the other side runs out of their own. Let's try and put on 6 times. Nope, 6 times is not a lot of fun. You can see some nomadic axemen. Again, the archers have been essentially expended, and now the lighter infantry is going to move in. Really efficient wave tactics on part of the attackers. They definitely know what they're doing. Not their first rodeo by any means. These elder Royal Council moving in to the rear of those 4HL captains. Oh man, that is going to really hurt these guys. 4HL captains aren't going to take it on the chin without a fight, though. They're now charging into battle against this Elder Royal Council, and surprisingly enough, they are doing really well despite their lower numbers. That is very impressive. Not many units can best the Elder Royal Council in combat. You can see the Elder Royal Council really getting their butts handed to them. I think 4HL captains haven't lost anything yet, but some reinforcements coming in the form of the Variags of Khans. I think there's some Nurad footmen as well. Yes, they're moving in to cut off about half of this unit. I think that two-front war is going to be a little bit too much for the 4HL captains, and indeed they are starting to fall apart in the face of the Elder Royal Council's wrath. Oh man, those Nurad footmen, I can't believe they're still alive at this point. These guys were in, like, the first wave. Well, I see a lot of skirmishing going on here. Some of the Variag bowmen have now moved up. These guys are good at standing up to missile fire. Less so the AP missile fire that I think we're seeing a lot of coming from that defending courtyard, but still a lot better than some of the later armored units, rather. Yeah, moving in there, trying to get a better skirmishing angle. Looks like we got some Balkov tribes in it. I wonder what they're up to. Oh, I think they're going after the Variags. Oh man, and they are devastating them. Those poor Variags just this is not the kind of fight that they're going to win. As I mentioned, they are good at standing up to missile fire, but damn, this combined arms approach here of bowmen and javelins is going to be a little bit too much for these Variag bows. And looks like it's going to oblige Khan to send in more and more of their lighter units. Variag bowmen now moving in. At the same time, I think some of the Locate Flag Rim have been obliged to move into combat. Oh, Samwise the Brave has come back. Some of his Ironfoot warriors must have come back from routing, and they are now making a strong showing here. The Balcott Tribesmen out of ammunition, fighting alongside their brothers, the Loke Flag Rim, doing really well. It looks like victory is nearly certain for these guys, and especially over here on this end where the archers are, these Loke Flag Rim are going to make mincemeat of these bowmen. Man, the defenders are just doing a great job at holding this line. You can see just how many waves of units have gone into this choke point and not returned on the part of the attackers. We're going to try and fast forward a little bit here. Nope, that's not working out too well. But yeah, there's more and more light infantry pouring into that gap, trying to wear down this defending front line. Oh man, looks like we're going to see the Sons of the Argonath move in. That is going to be brutality for the attackers. The Sons of the Argonath, I don't think they're AP, but damn did they do a lot of damage. Looks like the Elder Royal Council is going to get out of there. I think they might have an opportunity, especially right here on the flank. You can see this, to move over here and start to put a little bit of fire into the Sons of the Argonath and maybe turn that engagement around. I think we saw some javelins come in from up here. That's really done a number on those Elder Royal Council. Either from the clan crossbowmen or from, I think, the javelins up here. Damn, that is a hell of a throw if it's from the javelins. The javelins definitely have gotten a lot more range in this patch, but I don't know if it's quite that severe. So it may have come in from the crossbows, but either way, those Elder Royal Council have really taken a beating. Slowly but surely, the Elder Royal Council grows smaller and smaller. Looks like they're on the move again. Obi-Wan Glorfy being very, very sneaky, really playing these corners, trying to kind of pop in when the defending skirmishers are busy, deal a little bit of damage, and then move out again once they turn their attention to his Royal Council. Indeed, we can see them doing that right here. The Sons of the Argonath beginning to push through. They've absolutely massacred Samwise's dwarves, and yeah, the Elder Royal Council now moving in to try and push them back. At the same time, Samwise is moving in with Sons of Durin, but thinking a little bit better of it. Some nice coordination here. Yeah, it looks like at the same time as Obi-Wan was setting up for a flank volley, the Sons of Durin moved in, but saw what he was doing and then moved out again. So great teamwork there on the part of the attackers. Not too sure what they're attacking at this point. Oh, let's see. Oh, I see what they're going after. They're going after the Forest Shell Gatekeepers, and you can see them claiming the lives of several of them with that volley. It's a big catapult shot going down there, which is going to claim the lives of many of those Elder Council. Actually, no, only about 3 of them. That could have been a lot worse for the Elder Council, but still, every loss felt amongst these elite bowmen is quite dear. Elder Royal Council now moving in, looking to get some flanking shots. I think they're going back for the Gatekeepers. Like I said earlier, Obi-Wan Glorfy, very, very sneaky, firing a volley, then moving back into cover, and then I think he's going to turn around and fire another one once he's around the corner again. Looks like some of the Variag bowmen, what remains of them from that bottom level, have now moved up here onto the wall, now very, very heavily reduced. Oh man, look at the damage that has been done to the skirmishers up here on the wall. Oh, this is unfortunate. A little bit of a bug here. I think this is something that can sometimes happen with the custom settlements. These units will get stuck, although it's not stopping these Ironfoot crossbows. Look at them. Irrespective of the fact that they're not actually on solid ground, they're going to stand there and fire their bolts at the shielded fountain guard. This Forest Shell Gatekeeper just being merciless, trying to shut down every attempt by Vaughn Mountain to get some archers up onto the wall and put some pressure on the defenders in the middle. I have to say, the defenders have really done a great job at managing their resources here, especially in terms of their missile units. Oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, defenders will get themselves either caught out down here in the lower levels because they're too stubborn to pull back, and then they get surrounded and destroyed, and they just don't have enough to defend the center. Or they have a fair amount of units in the center, but not enough missile units to prevent those those forces from being gunned down by enemy skirmishers. Generally, in these battles, the attacking forces tend to leave some of their skirmishers in reserve for a very long time, so they come into the late game very strong in the skirmish department, especially in terms of their artillery. But that has not happened here for the defenders. They've done an admirable job at managing their forces and making sure that they have everything that they need to march forward toward victory in this siege. So the dwarves are now going to be obliged to commit some of their elites. We can see some hammers of Gundabad moving in. I think these guys got a little bit beat up at some of the gatehouses, but they'll probably be moving in alongside the nomadic axemen from Von Mount. That would be a really good idea, I think, at this point. They can see some javelin volleys coming down, looking to claim the lives and shave off some of the HP from these hammers of Gundabad. That's really, really quite good. Oh yeah, look at that, these javelins up here. These bandit javelins that cost nothing to bring are just doing a number on these hammers of Gundabad. Oh, that's beautiful. That's such a heroic throw, too. You can really see the amount of range the javelins have gained in this patch. It makes them a little bit easier to use. They're still a high-risk, high-reward unit, but they're a little bit, I think, more friendly. And, of course, they fire a little bit faster as well. I mean, these hammers of Gundabad doing their best to whack down these Fountain Guard in here with the Sons of Durin. That's not a very easy fight for the Fountain Guard. You can see them really struggling here. The Force of Eridar are going to move in with their bandits, try and support them with the decent attack values of the bandits while using the heavily armored Fountain Guards to shield themselves from the wrath of the dwarves. But it looks like, nonetheless, the dwarves are going to be able to slowly but surely push their way through the Fountain Guard. The Fountain Guard will hold for a long time, but they are not... they're not powerhouse infantry. They're a little bit stronger spearmen, and they can do some decent damage, but largely they are a holding force, unlike their two-handed brothers who do a lot more damage. Von Mount now moving in with some of his nomadic axemen. Great idea. There's so much AP in here. It does present a little bit of a risk, I think, for the attacking forces. There's a lot of their AP units still... there's a lot of very heavily armored units from the attackers, rather, or the defenders, still to come, and the attackers are really going to have need of their AP units, so it might not be the best idea to put them all together like this. The defenders still have access to their artillery and a lot of javelins and missiles besides. It'd be a shame if they lost them. Well, it looks like the Sons of the Argonath now coming back for round 2, trying to counter-push the attacking Variags and Dwarves. And so far, they're doing a pretty good job of it. You can see a lot of those axemen being cut down. It's got a nice view of the action right here. In fact, you know what? I am going to screenshot that because that is a beautiful thing. All these dwarves fighting up through a mountain of corpses, rather. Looks like the Elder Royal Guard trying to take advantage of the Sons of the Argonath as they are being held down by some pretty strong dwarven infantry. The Sons of the Argonath are going to be able to wipe these guys out, but it looks like the Elder Royal Council are trying to even the odds a little bit. Yeah, firing into the flank and rear of the Sons of the Argonath. A really nice path for enfilading fire right here. Also, let's take a look at what the attackers still have left. Still got some more hammers, a very healthy unit of hammers, some nomadic axes, and some Elder Royal Guard and things like that. So they're still looking really, really strong coming into this late portion of the battle. But so are the defenders. Look at this. There's a lot of Fountain Guard up there. There's still the Campbell's Chosen who are untested and extremely powerful. And, whoop, there's the Sapphire Bladesmen yet to come as well, who I believe are AP themselves. Oh, looks like we've got some more action going on up here on the walls. Von Mountain is moving in with another unit of his Variag bowmen. Seemingly, he has endless hordes of these bowmen, although they may actually be retreating off there and then gonna move into the fray right here between these two towers and begin to try and wear down the defending forces even further. It sort of appears to be the case. Sons of the Argonath really putting the hurt on the dwarves. The dwarves are going to have to commit their hammers of Gundabad, and it looks like... Oh, no, I thought there was some routing, but it looks like just a bit of a repositioning there from the nomadic axemen. We're trying to overwhelm this very small unit now of shielded Fountain Guard. They're managing to wrap around the flank here, and I think that's going to be a really big problem for the Fountain Guard. That's a lot of AP damage coming their way. The Sons of the Argonath now have managed to wrap around the dwarves on the other flank, which is good for the defenders, but the Elder Royal Council is slowly pecking them to death from the rear. can see 1 or 2 units, I think, taking a hit here and there, losing a hit point, which in the long run is going to be a big problem for these Sons of the Argonath. Oh man, they're just taking it. There's not enough Royal Council there to really be a complete nightmare for these Sons of the Argonath, but it's enough. 13 of them is enough with their high accuracy to do the damage that needs to be done and potentially force these Sons of the Argonath to retreat themselves. And indeed, they may have to. Look at this. Defeat now certain for them against this fresh unit of Hammerers. Oh man, they're really starting to take heavy casualties now. You can see them really beginning to drop. More volley fire coming in from the rear. Another death and another one. This is a really big problem. Oh, looks like some friendly fire, I think, from one of the artillery pieces. Looks like Rules just killed some of his own compatriots. Very unfortunate for the defenders. And there goes the Gondor general, having fallen in battle valiantly alongside his bodyguard, the Sons of the Argonath, in a heavy fighting here against the Hammerers of Gundabad. Those Elder Royal Council really making a big difference in the battle, despite the fact there's only 13 of them left. Oh my goodness! Oh, those Hammerers of Gundabad just got absolutely annihilated by that catapult shot. That was beautiful. I think that was coming in from the Gondor catapult. Wow. Look at the destruction on this ramp. Look just how many hundreds of warriors have died here defending this choke point. Oh man, that was cool. All right, moving on forward now. The elves and the attackers still so healthy. Look at the elite force that they've got here. Although I don't think there's anything left from Samwise the Brave. Samwise the Brave officially out of this battle, but there's still a lot left from his teammates. Those Fountain Guard have now been forced to fall back. Stubborn and powerful warriors though they are, they have been forced to fall back to the second line of defense here, that being a unit of Loki Gambrim that has been held in reserve for quite a while. Oh man, those not Sons of the Argonath rather, but those Hammers of Gundabad just got themselves absolutely ruined by the defending catapults. The defending catapults have just done so much for their forces in this battle. It's really one of the things that I think is keeping them in the battle at this point. A couple catapult shots going into these Variag bowmen. Looks like Von Mountain still has ammunition left in that unit and is still putting pressure on the defenders. Let's take a look. Let's see if the catapult actually manages to get down here or not. Oh my god, and it did! I think that was Rules' catapult claiming the lives of like nearly 20 of those Variag bowmen. That was a beautiful, beautiful shot. Up here, the Camels Chosen have now waded into battle against the Nomadic Axemen, now giving the business to their former brothers here. The Nomadic Axemen used to be part of the Runic faction, but now they have turned their cloak and belong to Khans, a new faction in Point 9. The Camels Chosen are exacting their revenge upon the bodies of these traitorous Nomadic Axemen. And the defenders again counter-pushing the attackers, doing a great job at holding this choke point. I'm not sure the attackers are going to be able to get through here in the way that they think that they were. The defenders still have a lot left, and we've seen how well the Loke Gambrim can do in this kind of situation. They can take on units much more expensive and much more numerous than they are when they are formed up here with their flanks protected. Oh man, these poor Nomadic Axemen getting themselves absolutely brutalized. Looks like the Elder Royal Council was trying to be a little bit sneaky here. Obi-Wan Glorfy coming around the corner and losing, I think, 5 or 6 of his Elder Royal Councilmen. That is a big loss for him right there. But these Elder Royal Council have really done their job in this battle. They assisted in the assassination of one of the really important units for Gondor. The Sons of the Argonath are now heavily reduced, lost a lot of HP, and indeed they managed to help kill the general. So despite their low numbers, these guys have really been a strong force in the battlefield to be reckoned with. Dwarves now moving in with more of their Khazad warriors. These wave tactics are beautifully executed, slowly wearing down the defending front lines. And now they've had to commit their elites as well. These Camels Chosen are really strong, but I think they're starting to lose their fatigue and lose a little bit of HP and numbers. Indeed, they lost about 7 or so of the men from the unit, which is unfortunate because they were only fighting light infantry, although it is AP. Awesome, Ironfoot Pikes now moving in. Pikes in Point 9 are really, really strong, so these guys could pose a serious problem for the defenders. A well-formed up pike unit can do a lot of damage, even to a unit as powerful and well-armored as the Camels Chosen. So this could be a game changer here for the dwarves. Looks like that catapult is readying itself to fire. This is a juicy target. If Balling can get a catapult volley off here into the heart of these units, then he is going to really turn the tide of this engagement in favor of his team. Are they going to be able to do it? Oh, and they are! Look at the... Oh, beautiful! In tandem, 2 different catapult units focus firing those Ironfoot pikemen, having now destroyed half that unit, absolutely cutting them apart, and really just... oh, man. That was beautiful. That was a tasty catapult volley right there. I love it. And another one! Oh, these Ironfoot pikemen just can't catch a break. Looks like that's going to be enough there, because I think it killed some of the nomadic axemen as well, to send them now fleeing and shrieking from the battlefield. Man, is there no end to the defenders' good fortune? That could just have easily as landed in the middle of their troops. That's quite some luck right there. And these nomadic warriors again losing steam against some of these Fountain Guard. Looks like a fresh unit here of the 2-handed Fountain Guard have been committed to the battle, and that's going to be more than enough to see off what remains of these pikemen and those nomadic axes. Oh, looks like the Elder Council have found their way up here. Are these guys ever going to run out of ammunition? Seemingly endless ammunition, and seemingly in 10 places at once. The Elder Council still putting pressure on the defenders. Let's take a look at their forces. They're going to have to start committing their elites really, really soon. Mostly, it's like the Elven elites here, and who are very strong. Don't get me wrong; those Elder Palace Guard are complete monsters. But the dwarves don't have a lot left, and Von Mountain surely does not have a lot left, especially with 3 of his units kind of stuck out here in this glitchy nightmare. Yeah, I think Von Mountain's forces are now completely expended as well, as are most of the dwarves. Yeah, things are going to get really dire here for the attackers. I think they're going to be down to their last legs. They're going to have to hope that their forces can push through here, but I don't know if it's going to be possible. Those catapults have done so much for the defenders, and there's still javelins, and there's still Fort Shell gatekeepers and crossbows and that sort of thing up here to really give those heavily armored attacking elites what for. So these hammers of Gundabad nomadic axemen are just beginning to run out of steam, and there's a timely arrival here of the Elder Royal Guard. We're going to begin to push into these guys, but that catapult again trying to... Oh my goodness! Holy crap, that was half the unit. That was beautiful. Unfortunately, it didn't get into the Elder Royal Guard, which would have been a much bigger win for the defenders, but damn, that was a beautiful shot there. So many good catapult volleys for the defenders. That's really, I think, keeping them in the game at this point. Among other things like their conservation of resources and stuff like that, but those catapult shots have been so decisive. You don't see that very often, at least not in .86. You're going to see it a lot more, I think, in .9, now that artillery is just generally a lot stronger. Oh man, that was gorgeous. Anyway, moving on. Those airborne infantry now getting into close combat against the Fountain Guard. I think the Fountain Guard are going to really struggle against this. Those Elder Royal Guard are very strong, and they really outclass the Fountain Guard in terms of their abilities in melee, and in fact they outnumber them as well. Actually no, belay that last, the Fountain Guard have more numbers, but they have less offensive and defensive stats. Let's take a look at this glorious melee here. Airborne infantry and the Fountain Guard not doing bad. The Fountain Guard are starting to take some casualties. Oh, what was that? Oh, this one unlucky bastard just got blown up by that catapult. See Obi-Wan Glorfy now committing his Elder Palace Guard. He must be desperate to force his way through here. The combined might of the Fountain Guard, a fresh regiment of them now joining the combat, and the Campbell's Chosen and the rest of the units here are proving to be, I think, a little bit too strong, even for the Elder Palace Guard, or the Elder Royal Guard, rather. Let's take a look at the percentages. Wow, those percentages are nearly dead even. That is beautiful. I think going into the second half of the battle, the defenders were down by like 25 or something like that. So they've really begun to pull it back at this point because of their very formidable, well-led defense of this final choke point. Oh man, let's get right down there. Let's get right in the thick of it. Those Elder Palace Guard doing so much damage. It looks like a unit of Battle-Ready Dunedain is in there as well. I think they might have been hiding, so I didn't see them earlier. But there is some Battle-Ready Dunedain apparently to go around. I don't know if the attackers can do this. I don't think I've ever seen a defending victory on my channel before, but I think this could be our very first one. Well, those Palace Guard now going to flee. I think there's a very good reason for that, that being the presence of these Sapphire Bladesmen up here who are beginning to throw their Javelin payloads. I'm not sure what they're going to go for. They've got a lot of really nice opportunities here. Those Mithril Guard now being committed to the battle, I think, are kind of begging to be thrown at with Javelins. This nice... Oh, it looks like the Ariador General is now fallen in combat. I think he was inside of the Dunedain, the battle-ready Dunedain. But the Mithril Guard have a lot of armor and a lot of defense, and honestly can be a nightmare for exhausted elites. Oh, that catapult volley! Oh, another beautiful catapult volley from the defenders. That is gorgeous. All this Mithril Guard are really not having a fun time right now. They've lost about a quarter of the unit, and I think they're getting more and more of their HP shaved off. Those Sapphire Bladesmen have now thrown their payload, done a lot of damage to all of the units that are down here. I think they managed to catch some of the first rail guard unit as well in those volleys. And oh man, those Mithril Guard are down to like half of their unit or something already. That is a big win for the defenders right there. I think they're going to do that. I think they can actually pull this off. I'd be very, very impressed. Maybe if they can get like 1 or 2 more catapult shots. The Gondor catapult is in a great position to hit these guys. Oh man, if they can tear the heart out of that Elder Royal Guard unit, that is going to be game over. Looks like some more javelins up here, some bandit javelins. Still at this late point in the battle. Look at this. We're nearly down to the end of the battle, and they still have ammunition left. I gotta say, that's really impressive. Oh my god! Dude, the catapult hits never stop coming. All those Dwarven miners just got absolutely devastated, pancaked by that catapult shot. More and more javelins pouring into, I think, the Mithril Guard, who are now starting to fall apart, and indeed the Elder Royal Guard here are also taking a lot of damage from that constant missile fire. They're just being peppered down. Looks like they've still got some crossbows here as well. Rune still has a very healthy crossbow unit. I think that's going to be... It's going to be pretty scary. Oh man, Rune has so many missiles left. He's still got some Balcott tribesmen. This is going to be devastating for the attackers. I'm not sure that they can come back from this at this point. Oh, what is that catapult? Oh my god. If it could just stay in that position, that would be amazing. Oh man, those Elder Royal Guard are just taking it. Look at that. Beautiful javelin volleys down there into the Royal Guard, doing so much damage to that very important unit. Well, Sapphire Bladesmen as well, now in battle. I'm not sure how well they stack up against the Elder Royal Guard. I've never really tried it. But they seem to be doing reasonably well. I don't think they've lost too many of their units yet, and they probably have better fatigue than these Elder Royal Guard, who are actually, I think, winded at this point. No, they're actually tired. Oh man, those javelin volleys. Look at this. Those dwarves, the dwarves are just being absolutely slaughtered. Looks like the Minas Ithil Guardians, or the Wardens of Minas Ithil, now in the fray as well. I'm sure they're pretty good in melee. They're quite low number, so I assume they're quite expensive and quite elite, and usually those kinds of archer units are good in melee. How can the miners be winning at this point? I don't understand. The Fountain Guard have really suffered heavy losses at this point. I don't think there's anything left of Balin's Fountain Guard. There's another unit of Elder Palace Guard now moving up here. Looks like these Balcott tribesmen still have some missiles left, and they may begin to throw them in to those Palace Guard. I think that's probably the best target, and indeed they are. Let's see, they got one more volley left in them? I think so. Oh man, those Palace Guard have already taken two casualties. These guys have a lot of HP. That's a lot of damage that those tribesmen have done to them. Oh man, one of those Battle Ray Dunedain just got absolutely destroyed by that Palace Guard. Palace Guard now moving in, trying to break the flank of what remains of the defenders. The defenders are really on their last legs here as well. Let's just take a look at the percentages. Look at that! That is gorgeous. This is the kind of siege battle that I love to see. So those Balcott tribesmen now out of ammunition, trying to move over onto that flank, possibly to flank those Elder Palace Guard. That's not going to be an even fight at all. Those Balcott tribesmen are going to get destroyed, but at this point, what do the defenders have left to lose? Looks like the Brotherhood of the Axe have now made it into the battle. That is very, very bad. I totally forgot about them. They are fresh and have not even been used. Looks like the crossbows have something to say about that, though. A lot of those Brotherhood of the Axe kind of falling there to a very devastating crossbow volley from those clan crossbows up on the ridge. Oh man, looks like the 4 shell gatekeepers out of ammunition now, reforming, trying to form a pike wall here to hold back what remains of the attacking elites to give those crossbows the time that they need to do their work. Maybe I spoke a little bit too soon here. I think, I don't know, it seems about dead even. There's still those bladesmen left in combat, and there's only a few of the Royal Guard left. Most of the dwarves are gone. It's really down to Khand and what remains of the elves to do what needs to be done. Well, they're doing pretty well. They're pushing back the tribesmen. How many Palace Guard are left? There's a lot of Palace Guard left. I think this is going to be game over for the defenders. Maybe I spoke a little bit too soon, but if these crossbows can get themselves active once more and start to deal more damage to these elites, maybe, just maybe, they can turn it around. It doesn't look like they're going to have the opportunity. I think they're now out of ammunition. That's very unfortunate. These Brotherhood, they actually going to get in there very quickly and begin to cut these guys down. There's actually some Mithril Guard in there as well, who are now down to a mere 6 units. The 4 shell gatekeepers coming in from behind them, trying to lend a little bit of help to those beleaguered clan crossbows, but they are just too light and don't have enough damage and enough melee skill, I think, to really survive these Brotherhood of the Axe in close combat. Oh, look at that. Okay, that's one thing I forgot to mention. Let's slow it down just a little bit here so we can really enjoy this custom model that was made by the Reforged team. The Sapphire Bladesmen are actually the bodyguard for one of the blue wizards. So this is either Alatar or Polando. You don't really hear a lot about them in the books, but we know that they exist, and indeed now they have a custom model, which is just, that's a great addition to the game. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's fast forward it now, and let's witness the final stand of the defenders here. This was probably the best defense of this fortress I have ever seen, and I am not saying that lightly. Usually, as I said earlier, it's really kind of obvious who's going to win. It's a lot more one-sided, but this was down to the wire. The attackers are only managing to just barely squeak by, and still there's elites from the defenders left who are going to give them what for. But yeah, the attackers rather have only barely managed to squeak by with a handful of elites left at this point. 99% to 93. That is a defeat that you do not have to feel ashamed of at all. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward here just a little bit and witness the final stands of these 4 shell gatekeepers and those runic clan crossbows. All things considered, they haven't done too bad against the Brotherhood of the Axe, who are fresh, and these guys have been fighting basically the entire battle. Elder Palace Guard now just cleaning them up. We're down to the last moments of the battle here. You can see those 4 shell gatekeepers now in danger of routing, surrounded, and there you go. The defenders have been finally dislodged from this. But hold on, we're going to pause this for a moment. Oh, damn, we didn't have an opportunity, rather. But let's just take a quick look there at some of the destruction that's happened on this ramp. That is ridiculous. That's like 3 or 4 armies worth of bodies right there. Really, really impressive. Let's take a look at some of the casualties here. The 4 shell gatekeepers really, really holding their own in this kind of fight. Eriador doesn't have a ton of kills, but they played a really valuable support role, I think. We saw them several times on the walls and on the main battle line supporting other heavier factions with their infantry, which really, given the composition that they had, that is the best thing that they could have done. So it was a great game to everybody involved. That easily one of the coolest sieges I've ever seen. Thank you to Sawbones for sending it in to me, and thank you to everybody who played and participated. It was a pleasure to watch. But yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Unfortunately, I will not be able to get the 12-12 game that I had planned to do today out by this evening. I will be able to get it out tomorrow, and there is a very good reason for that, and that is because I have a 4 versus 4 team battle coming up for you guys with a lot of new factions that I think some of them maybe you haven't seen before. And there's a ton of new units and things like that as well, a lot of great tactics. So you're going to be seeing that in the next few days. It is so good. It was the highlight of my day today. It was beautiful. But in any case, I have been JMonster. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next replay, or whatever it happens to be. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye!